I don't not smell-o-vision yet, but we are. We're here today to look particularly at .nyc and how small businesses are given name, and looking at the way they do it in London versus the way they'll be doing it here in New York City. And we have three people with us at this point. Michael, well, maybe they'll introduce themselves. Michael, could you start for just a brief intro?
Sure. I'm Mike Stahl. I'm a board member of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter, and I'm the chairman of the Interplanetary Networking chapter.
Those are ISOC. Just to be clear,
Yeah.
that this here today, although I'm a board member of ISOC New York, the meeting today is of the Connecting NYC. This is the not-for-profit that focuses on the development of the .nyc top-level domain. And all this gets very confusing sometimes. But and Robert, who's
hi,
yeah.
That's me. Yeah, Robert Pollard. Oh, I thought I have this thing. I'll try to get it up. Here we go. Okay.
Oh, the toolbox. Yeah.
Yeah, the little label thing. Sometimes it remembers who I am, and sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of a little confusing. Anyhow, yeah, I'm in New York. I'm an information ecologist. I've worked with the UN NGO for 20 years now, focusing on information technology and sustainability. And I've been working with Tom on this whole .nyc initiative, project, whatever, for quite a while. And with Tom, I'm on the city's advisory board for .nyc.
Okay. And
which is finally the sort of first real phase of actually any kind of public participation in the discussion of and planning for .nyc. That really didn't happen at all under Bloomberg.
So we have monthly meetings at this point, and every second Monday we have a meeting, and we're still looking for a little more public engagement in the process. And meanwhile, though, the allocation process continues, so we get a little concerned once in a while. And one of the subjects that we were talking about on Monday was the small businesses, the fact that there is no priority given to the small businesses in the city, whereas in London there is. Let's see if I can give you a URL for this. Let me see if this works here. The London folks have a. Let's see if I have it. Yeah, that's it. The London folks have a plan that allows you to existing businesses to establish their priority, and as such have a jump on those who are not using the name. So, somewhat incredibly, to my understanding at this point in New York, I use the example of Ricky's Cafe, which is right out my window here across the street, and it's been there for 20 years, and it's a little coffee shop, and they have they have no priority whatsoever. If they have a state trademark, that doesn't count. It's just come August 8th, when the land rush starts, it will be everybody for themselves on who bids for what name. There are no plans to inform entities that this opportunity will arrive, as far as I know, and that they'll have a 60-day period in which to select their name before it goes to general availability, and where anybody in the world, not everybody in the world, but anybody in the city can grab the name. So
in the original application for the TLD, there was a thing that included all kind of businesses that have licensing, city licensing, food licensing, this, that, and the other thing. But that just, and also non-profits in the city, but that just kind of vanished off the chart.
Michael, you had a question?
Does the city, publish any, criteria that they're going to follow for awarding domains?
Not really, other than this, the sunrise phase, which is for trademarks, city affiliated, which is kind of loosely defined, and then it's general availability, and then it's a land rush and general availability. If there is more than one application for a name in the land rush, then there is an auction. And one of the issues is whether, if there is such a thing.
You mean just whoever has the most money gets it?
That's
yeah,
it.
and the question of whether there shouldn't at least be something that says, there's some kind of thing that of a need to show that that's a valid name, that's an actual name of a business, rather than someone who just likes the name but doesn't actually have anything functioning under that name.
Yeah, so it's not the, there's no equalizing, there's no equity here in the sense of this new resource that we have in making it available to folks on some type of equitable basis. And here's I did a post last Monday, a few days ago, about the subject, and looked at 4 different categories of name allocations, and some of the more progressive, we have a new progressive mayor in the city, and suggesting some ways that he might be able to fulfill the tenets of his progressive agenda. And one of them was with the following the London example, and providing existing businesses with the opportunity to have their names selected first. And the way they do it over there is, if there's a period of essentially a land rush period, and at the end of it, if there's more than one name, more than one bid for a name, they'd be able to upload papers indicating that they have a right to the name, so a business certificate or something of that sort, which I thought was not all that complicated, and in this day and age seemed doable. And the impression I got was that don't delay, we have to do this immediately, and we don't want it to be complicated. And I don't think they've taken it in as a holistic.
It sounds like a great business opportunity for Chinese domain registrars to come in and grab up a bunch of stuff and then sell it out.
Yeah.
Well, there are some restrictions on that, on the transfer. And firstly, you have to have a business. You have to have a real address in the city.
Oh, okay.
But there are some limits. I'll pull up that link for that.
Yeah, the limits on that are that you can get online now, and in 5 minutes you can buy a New York City address, a prestigious address for $15, $25 a month that allow you to mail, use 245 Fifth Avenue as your address. And there's the contractor at this point has said that we, being the general public, I'm not sure whom, is supposed to provide them with a list of who these remailers are, and they will include them somehow in their process of review. And I guess we've kind of concluded that we'll have to try and fulfill that need. But you go on Google search, doing a virtual offices and remailers and different search terms in New York City, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these entities that are out there. And how the contractor is not responsible, or how the city has not assumed responsibility for that, is a little disconcerting at the moment. And I guess part of our concern that they perhaps have not adopted this as a real resource for the city. That is just another contract that's to be administered and completed as soon as possible. And so while they're having monthly meetings, there's that's for the board members, those who have been appointed to the advisory board. I don't know, 10, 11, 12 of us, whatever there are. And I was contacted by a local reporter recently who said he'd requested that he attend the meeting and was not allowed to. And according to state law, advisory boards are not open meetings. So you can't really criticize the city for that, and we have very little time for it, but still some type of outreach I think would be useful, especially when people are losing their names, somewhere to let small businesses know that, here's an opportunity, you better act by, 60 days from August 8th, or your name is lost very possibly, and how much of a business it is for these folks who, China, Geneva, or wherever, who are going to buy names and just grab a New York City address for $15 a month, and I'm not convinced yet that that's a very strong protection for the city's TLD. So when the meeting ended on Monday, Robert and I had a donut across the street from City Hall in the park, and I was somewhat sanguine about the situation. I thought we were in good shape, or better shape. But I don't know. Since then, I've grown a little concerned about the matter. So I thought that today would be a good time to kind of focus on this, on London and what they're doing. And it was said that the London system was not needed; that we had enough protections here. This is what was somewhat indicated. This is what was clearly indicated at the meeting. And I think that we have to explore that more and make it clear to the city if they're wrong, where they're wrong, and how they might correct it. So I think that's something that we intend to do in the next week or so. So so this thing from London on the London priority rules, whether they applied it, whether they're perfect or not, I don't know. But there was some criticism that they were not perfect. But an attempt to come up with a set of rules that allow Ricky's across the street to have an opportunity to grab their name rather before someone else takes it and sells it back to them, I think is a reasonable. It's not simple, the talk was that it wasn't that these things are difficult, and equality is difficult sometimes, and fairness, and I don't think there's this clock that keeps ticking every day, and the contractor likes the situation, does not see any need for any change, and I don't think the new administration yet has concluded that this is something that needs change. So we need to make that clear, and we're trying to do it as much detail and clarity as possible. So. And if Internet Society can help us out, that would be very helpful also, or individual members from Internet Societies. And so today's one of those discussions that we have on a weekly basis. We get together here from 3 to 4 to 5 actually, and discuss these, whatever seems to be the salient issue for the day or the week. And this one today is about it. So I was, if I may, kind of push on and see if I can. Was I able to give you a URL for that? I think no, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm scanning it now.
Okay, good. And
multitasking.
Excellent. And so the London Priority 1 is you must have a valid London address and the existing right for the name. And I think it's just a very reasonable process to follow, and they give out the details. I don't see where too many holes are in this process here. It seems rather straightforward, and they even they talk about uploading and the size of the files. My fine-tooth comb hasn't gone through this yet, but it does seem like very straightforward in terms of how you establish yourself and apply for things online these days. I have done this, recently. We changed some, qualified for some resources based upon our 501c3 status, and I'm always having to prove myself by uploading this and that. And granted, I don't know how easy it will be for Ricky's Cafe if this is something that they're accustomed to doing on a regular basis. But at least they'd have the opportunity to do so. And actually, let me see if I can. Okay, I do have it there, the PDF. So, Robert, have you? Yeah, Michael, go on.
Yeah, it seems to me that one thing that's really valuable about this is that you got to have an address. In Greater London, they define what that means, and they say they're going to check the validity of the address.
Right.
And it might be interesting to just ask the city what they believe the protections are that exist. Kind of allow them to hoist themselves on their own petard.
No, apparently London doesn't preclude a PO box as an address, whereas here, with .nyc, that's not something you can do.
A strict post PO box from the U.S. Postal Service. That's not allowed, but there's no rule against the remailers. So that's an enormous hole, and somehow I wasn't quite clear of the logic, at the Monday meeting, but supposedly because Robert, if you understood this, but it was argued that because New York had a stronger nexus than London, that somehow that made our lack of any priority for existing businesses unnecessary. And I didn't quite follow that, where that, how that all panned out, but because for whether you have to be there, whether your nexus is in London, whether you're in London or Beijing, and if you have a priority to the name's use in London, you have the right to a stronger right to get the name. So I don't see how that nexus issue really entered into it, but so we have to make that clear. So been really going over this LPP, London Priority Rule, LPR, I guess it is. Why do I say LPP? But London Priority, period. That's what it is, LPP. And trying to figure out why it doesn't apply to New York. I mean, why we couldn't use that. And I haven't found a good reason yet. So that's why I thought I'd invite some others. And since we are on live here, there will probably be other folks from wherever that look at this after our event, or maybe they're looking right now. I'm really not. I saw a couple of people who indicated that they were going to be watching. So we've been struggling to figure out how to use the Hangouts. That the rules and techniques for using it seem to change on a regular basis. So today we're both an event and a Hangout, online on-air Hangout. So a couple of people indicated that they will be watching. So who's out there watching, I have no idea. But whether they're watching now or after the event, any ideas on any problems with the London or any improvements to the London priority plan would be, we'd really like to hear, as we're going to pass that information on to city officials in the near future. So that's Michael, may I ask, are you going to be at the London meeting? Do you anticipate? Are you an at-large structure as well, or?
Actually, another board member, Konstantin Palatzidis, is going to attend at London.
Is that as a at-large, or is that an ISOC, or?
San Francisco Bay is an at-large.
San Francisco, okay, very good, very good. Yeah, well, I've been attending some of those events recently, the webinars in preparation for that, and they're informative. I think pick up a thing or two listening to them. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is trying to organize a group of cities that have applied for city TLDs to the at-large structures to meet and talk about what type of governance they might be thinking of, or best practices, and how to share that type of information. So I will be informing those who have been trying to go through to the individual city chapters or at-large structures initially, but I'll certainly reach out much more broadly soon, and I'm sure on some of the lists you'll see the information.
Well,
And,
do you want me to send you his email address?
yeah, I would appreciate that. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that there's ever been any talk about San Francisco is one of those difficult cities as far as TLDs. Were they interested with the space in the name? It doesn't lend itself, and then length of the name. They got 2 strikes against you in terms of a
Yeah.
TLD there. It's a toughie
Well, they could go SFO, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen the airport. Well, I guess that's what it is. SFO is the airport. Is that where it comes from?
Yeah. But it's actually not in San Francisco. It's about 10 miles south.
Yeah, I was thinking about when I was on a vacation just recently, last week at this time, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago. I was in San Francisco, and it was it's a nice city you got there. I would have liked to spend more time. But Robert, you seem very engaged in something.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was doing a little research on mailboxes in the city and forwarding things, and came up with another one here. And I don't know whether there's a...
Yeah, when I did the search on the virtual office, I came up with some entity that one organization that had, pardon me, that had about 3 pages worth of, maybe it was 50 buildings. If each of them was a giant office building in the city, and how they would undertake the task of disallowing anybody from those buildings was challenging. Let's say it was it would give you the floor. You would on the ads for it, it would give you the the 40th floor or the 17th floor or something like that, and they'd have a picture of these monstrous, these big office buildings, and it certainly would look good on your stationery, and I guess they have a good business going on, but and some of them are actual offices, but you can just do the mailing part for $15-25 or whatever per month, and how the contractor would sort through those, how you can be sure that the applicant for a domain name is legitimately a city entity is, I don't think that's the way to assure that small businesses get their name. And the fact that they've just thrown out and no one questions it, the state trademarks, is sort of surprising to me. I do have one. I have an international trademark, this Communisphere name that I use, which I've not done enough with over the years. But the fact that businesses pay an extra $50-100 to get a state trademark when they open their business, and then in this whole process there's no one speaking up for the small businesses in the city. And this is not, while I guess I am a small business as a not-for-profit, I don't consider myself an advocate for small businesses, and to be spending this time on small businesses, I say to myself, isn't there some trade organization, a chamber of commerce, or someone out there who are the Partnership for New York, or one of these entities that have staffs and budgets that are out there speaking up for our small businesses? And to date, there hasn't been. So this is a cry for anyone who's listening to urge these organizations to look out for their members and the rights of their members. And there's, I guess the only thing I can think it stems from is the general belief on the part, or lack of understanding on the part of the general community, that a TLD can have a role in doing something positive for the city, and the damage that it can do if used inappropriately. That I heard it expressed by someone that at one of our meetings, the advisory board's meeting, that this was different from NYC. That .NYC, so whatever happens in .NYC is not going to reflect on New York City. And I didn't see very much strength in that argument. If someone's mugged in Staten Island, it doesn't really reflect well on New York City or Times Square or whatever. The difference between our TLD and our city, I think, is going to be not, if all of a sudden Nightline, or someone does a story about atrocities that are going on, thievery or whatever, and within .nyc names, I don't, I would think it would reflect badly on the city in general, and and the opportunity it provides, to make a trusted place to do business is not been accepted. So I guess as the clock ticks, I was really hopeful when the new administration came in, and I still am. I like the ability and the thoughtfulness of the official who's in charge of this. But the last meeting we discovered that he's got several other projects that he's taking care of, and it's for a few months at least, it would seem that someone dedicated to the topic and familiar with it, a decent running start in terms of what a TLD is and can do for a city would be reasonable to put someone or a small staff aside to take care of this. And it's just, it's kind of like ad hoc on everyone's part. There is nobody in the city administration who does this full time, and that's going to come back to bite us, I think. And it's what's it? So 60 days from it's all over in I guess 90 days at this point. By October is general availability. Land rush starts in August, and there's still very little energy behind this in terms of the administration. So
although that has changed, I mean, one of the things when we began the meeting on Monday, Jeff Merritt, who's the city point person, did say that they're getting excited about the project. And one of the things that has been successful has been, which was initially central to Tom's initial proposal for the TLD, was reserving neighborhood names and creating a structure for doing that. But I think they're realizing that there's a lot to it. And again, Bloomberg's administration didn't do them any favors in the initial registration process, and so kept it really under the below the radar for the most part.
I've heard some people refer to it as a stink bomb left by the Bloomberg administration, and that one of these days it will, when people realize what's happened, it will not be something pleasant to behold. So I don't know, what the hope is, but I think there's time. So there are these days and months ahead. We have 2 more meetings of the advisory. The kind of like drop dead date, I'd say, would be I don't know, is it August 4th or August 8th? But once this land rush starts, I think that any opportunity you have to do it in a thoughtful manner is lost, because there are people who make businesses out of this. And I was surprised the other day. I was on one of the domain namers sites, and this fellow was talking about he'd done a survey about the folks who were on the site, asking them about why they buy domain names, and there were 4 categories, and I wish I had it in front of me. But the third category, a small category, was people who plan on developing the names, and the first 2 were the defensive, and the other was virtually defensive or something. I don't have it clear in my head, but basically a very small category was those who hope to develop them, and I don't think people in the city administration appreciate the fact that the monstrous casino that these domain names are, to a certain extent. That there is not that there aren't a great number of people who are buying names for development purposes. It's more investment purposes, and I'm sure there's some merit to that. But in terms of a city, I am not, it doesn't seem like it's the approach that it benefits the city most, most. So, so we're working on it, and I hope I'm not being too negative, Robert. I apologize if I didn't come out cheerful enough from the meeting on Monday, but we are, we're putting our noses into this grindstone thing here, and coming up with a list of addresses that will be can be abused, and also trying to figure out why, what are the problems with the London proposal? Why can't we use that in New York, and or a version of it, an improved version somehow? And so we'll hopefully have that all together before our next meeting in June, and and we'll have another meeting in July, and hopefully they'll adopt some more thoughtful approaches, as they have with the neighborhoods. They've demonstrated that. And actually, next week, Robert was bringing up the subject that there is a Internet Week in the city here, and the mayor is going to give a keynote speech, and Robert was pushing for the idea of a major .nyc element to it, and we'd actually submitted some ideas on how they could do it, but it doesn't seem as of yet that it's just going to be one of the bigger projects that's going on in the city is with our payphones. I think we have 11,000 payphone sites in the city, which are somewhat archaic at this point, and they're all going to be turned into Wi-Fi spots. I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, but
right, that's my understanding. Right.
Yeah. So there are going to be these 11,000 Wi-Fi spots, and the same gentleman who handles .nyc handles that as well, and another project or two, and so the Wi-Fi has gotten a lot of headlines, and I haven't a lot of stories, and I haven't really heard a lot about .nyc in the media at all. So it really hasn't picked up, and I was interviewed by a fellow from the Gotham Gazette for an hour last week, and I haven't seen this story yet. Yeah, Adam, someone or another, and I presume that's in the works. But this public Wi-Fi seems like a big deal, and they're doing the subways too, which is nice. More and more on the subway, some of the stations have Wi-Fi, so. Things are improving here in general, but to take a big jump yet to get the population aware of the .nyc and what it can do. So that's where we sit.
Does this administration seem to you to be less savvy than the Bloomberg administration that initiated the process?
I don't think so. Frankly, I didn't have a very good opinion of Rachel Hout, who was the chief digital officer, who kind of was the point person, although she really didn't understand a whole lot, I think, about the opportunities of the process. So I don't know. I think that that the whole issue, New Star wants to essentially say, look, don't worry about it, we'll handle it. We'll give you some money and people will have a fancy address. But the idea that it's really part of a digital development strategy for the city was never really part of Bloomberg's thing. And it hasn't, the digital issue, internet, has not really been Ned de Blasio hasn't really talked about this very much. Although I think generally his perspective of a sort of participatory, inclusive city suggests that he could and should.
Yeah, I think if you look at it seems like it should be right up his alley, in the sense that if you look at the progressive agenda, which is linked to in that in the URL I put up. It talks about engaging the public in a number of different ways, and transparency and accountability and such. And domain names could serve a key role in making that clear to people. If we had some type of a good organized name structure and it was promoted and used. That would be very helpful. One of the things this administration has done, on a positive note, is that they have decided to use the gov.nyc. The previous administration said that they were not going to use the gov.nyc, that they were going to stick with the current nyc.gov. So that that's a positive move. And But most of the stuff is left over from Bloomberg. It's only been, where are we now? It's only been 5 months. 4.5 months at this point. So digital initiatives, I haven't seen too many new ones. The Wi-Fi is a continuation from the old administration, and .nyc the contract was negotiated under the old administration. So I don't know that there is new stuff that I've seen yet, but there, the old stuff. I wasn't a big fan of Bloomberg myself, and I kind of, I think it's more his responsibility than his staff's in that sense. And yeah. So I don't know that the old staff held responsibility. I know Rachel, for example, was told that given the contract, this monstrous contract that says, "Here, take care of it," and we didn't have a huge staff to address it, and maybe I didn't agree with the way she approached it as well. But Bloomberg, I think, was it's the Bloomberg administration. It's not the Rachel administration, and they will be responsible if it doesn't work out right, as far as I'm concerned. But although there is still, de Blasio has the opportunity to make things right, so I'm hopeful still. So we'll see. I'm not smiling enough. You'll get there. Go, Bill. So what's, if I may ask, since we have someone from far off San Francisco here, are there any digital issues that are, San Francisco is probably so much more digitally engaged than New York here. I finally know where, having been there, we drove from, basically from Las Vegas, we drove up through California and ended up in San Francisco. So I know where Silicon Valley is now in relation to San Francisco, and a number of things. It had been 30 years since I was in San Francisco. I don't think there was a Silicon Valley last time I was out there, or barely so, 30, 35, 40 years. It was a long time ago. So, but yeah, the talk, I know I was down in a coffee shop downtown, and they were talking about, I was asking about I was talking to some local about the troubles with, or we gather in New York here about, I guess it was Twitter who was moving into a lot of offices downtown, and
yeah.
The housing problem there must be enormous.
Yeah, there was an article in the San Jose Mercury, which is actually the major paper for Silicon Valley. Real estate prices have hit historic highs, and San Francisco, I believe, is the second most expensive real estate market in the country, outside of New York City. And so it's people are seeing neighborhoods that used to be places where kind of middle class people lived. That's what the Mission District was, and now it's this upscale yuppified district. And South of Market, same thing. It used to be a very kind of industrial area. Is now full of trendy places, and so there's been a huge reaction on the part of many citizens in San Francisco to companies like Square and others that are headquartered in San Francisco that are kind of busing people in from out of the city, and also raising the price of real estate so that middle class people are kind of edged out of the market. But it's not really new. San Francisco's been that way as long as I can remember. I know several people that loved living in the city, worked in the South Bay in Cupertino, Sunnyvale, San Jose, and had to save up for years to have enough money for a down payment for a place within the city. So I'm not sure that there's a lot of logic in the sentiment, but the sentiment is surely there. There's kind of a growing divide between kind of the San Francisco and North Peninsula area and kind of the heart of Silicon Valley, or what used to be the heart of Silicon Valley, which is kind of from Palo Alto down to San Jose. There's a lot more, what can I say, mobile app centricity to San Francisco, and that seems to be where a lot of the money is flowing. So a lot of traditional companies that at least perceive themselves to be kind of the backbone of Silicon Valley are kind of taking a back seat. Companies like HP and Cisco and Intel, are certainly not able to provide the outstanding benefits of companies like Square and Facebook and Google.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some initiatives, in the greater San Francisco Bay Area to start addressing digital divide issues. Affordability of broadband and in particular training. In fact, one of the panelists that we had at our INET last Friday at the University of Santa Clara, that's the focus of her research is the digital divide, and she had a pretty interesting perspective. That cybersecurity can be the INET was on cyber surveillance, but the cyber surveillance can become something that becomes another barrier for people that for whom access to the internet is kind of a new thing, increases their anxiety, and it's just another layer of complexity that they have to deal with in order to protect their identity and their privacy rights.
And I heard Bryn's speech last night, which was very interesting.
Yeah, David's always entertaining, and he actually has a lot of passion about the topic, and he did write a nonfiction book in 1998 about surveillance, both physical and digital, that people are still talking about today. Isn't he also speaking at either a DC or New York City ISOC function in the near future?
I don't know. I know there's something coming up on May 21. Maybe he's part of that. I'm not clear. I wasn't familiar with him until last night when I watched. And actually, I bought his book on privacy, or whatever the name of it was.
The Transparent Society.
Yeah. I hope it's worthwhile. And one of the things that I did notice in San Francisco, I don't know if you have my picture up there on your screen, but in the BART I took this picture here of this modest house that you could get for the lottery raffle, I guess, and a nice house, I'm sure, but either you get $4 million or you get that house. So it says something about the prices of houses in San Francisco, I guess.
Well, it looks like it's in Pacific Heights. That's a really expensive district.
Oh, is it? Yeah. All right. I'd take the $4 million. I mean, I like San Francisco, but
oh wait, is that? Good. Oh, does the map show where it is?
I didn't see anything that I wouldn't have known. I didn't really look.
No, okay, but the architecture, looks like Pacific Heights.
Yeah. It was a pleasant visit, and. But in any case, Michael, we usually end these at about 5 o'clock. So I think that we'll try to keep on schedule, and I thank you for stopping by, and Robert, thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the invite, Tom.
Yes, you're quite welcome. I appreciate your contribution. And perhaps next, we'll keep you up to date with. Send me that email address of the fellow.
I already did.
You did? Okay, thank you. And when we make this report on the small businesses in London, if we can make that applicable to the city and how it ties in with the Nexus requirement and such, we'll make sure you get a copy of that as well. So,
okay, thanks.
All right.
Okay, good
Robert?
to connect, Michael. Yeah. All right.
Good to see you, Robert.
All right.
Okay.
See you all
good to
soon.
see you.
All right.
Take care.
Good to see you tomorrow.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.